Hello, art beaters, Becky here, and I've got a new video for you today. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do the square stitch with TOHO Aiko seed beads. These seed beads are really precise and uniform, so they're great for a stitch like square stitch where the beads line up almost like loom work. Now you can use square stitch to alter loom pieces, and I'll talk about that today too. So I'm going to be showing you how to make some really cute earrings with the square stitch, and I'll also show you how easy it is to decrease that stitch as well. So let's dive in. So square stitch is super simple, super easy, and it's a super fast stitch. And I'm going to use some different colors here that I already have poured out. So today for this stitch, I am using 11/aught TOHO Aiko seed beads. I'm going to use a size 12 beading needle, and I am also going to be using some TOHO 1G beading thread. Works really great with the TOHO seed beads, including the Aikos. And I'm also going to get this little bead stopper in there too. I'll need a little bead stopper to start the stitch. So I made this pattern on our seed bead graph paper. We offer this graph paper on our website for you to download and print out so you can make your own designs, and we have it for a wide array of stitches. We've got it for square stitch, as you can see here. We've got brick stitch graph paper, loom paper, peyote stitch paper, all kinds of great graph paper for you to color and make your own designs with. We also, of course, have a PDF diagram for the colors on the website as well, included with the instructions for these earrings. So you can follow those or get our graph paper, which I have a link to in the video description, and make your own patterns. That's really fun too. So that's how I came up with this pattern. What makes 1G so good to use? I've used a lot of different beading threads over the years. What I like about 1G, it's really sturdy and it doesn't tangle a lot. You'll get the occasional little knot here or there, but even if you do get a knot, it's really easy to undo. Oftentimes it's just you got to pull the thread. It's more kinked than knotted, so if you pull the thread, it just undoes itself. The ends don't fray. It's easy to add the needle to your thread because the ends don't fray as much. And it's just a really great sturdy thread that I use time and time again. So that's why I like TOHO 1G. And I think it really is made to be used with TOHO beads like the TOHO Aikos. So match made in heaven. Okay, so I am going to cut a length of thread. I don't need a whole lot because these little square stitch pieces aren't very long, so I'm just going to do an arm span length. Yes, there are tons of color options in TOHO 1G too. I mean, TOHO knows that they offer so many wonderful bead colors, so they had to make sure that they had a lot of thread colors to match all of those bead colors. So that's another great thing about the TOHO 1G is there's a lot of different colors. I've got a few here that I can show you. So this is just a little pack of just some of the colors. There's pinks, there's purples, there's lights, there's darks, all kinds of wonderful colors for you to match with your seed beads. I'm using a dark color here just so it's easier for you to see, but you could use whatever color matches your beads best. Another thing I like about TOHO 1G is they're available in different spool sizes. This is a great one if you just need thread fast and you know you don't need a whole lot. This is the smallest option, but they have larger spools too. So for colors like white or black, that'd be a great one to get the larger spools because you know you're always going to use white or black thread for something. It's a great go-to, whether your seed bead colors are light or dark. So that's another great thing about 1G is there's different spool sizes to choose from. No, it doesn't really split either, Lois. That's another great thing. Like I said, it's a really sturdy thread. It doesn't fray or split too much. All right, so let's thread our needle. Got it on there. First try. I'm getting good at that. Always a little nerve-wracking to do it on camera. So to start your square stitch, I've got my 3 colors here, and I've got my pattern. What you're going to do to start the square stitch, you're just going to string on those beads in the first row. So I'm going to use this color for my chevron color, that first chevron color there. I'm going to use this color for my background color, and you're going to need 2 of those in the first row. This hot pink color is going to be my straight line color. And then I'm going to add 2 more of that background color. Oops. And then 1 more of my chevron color. Okay, and then I'm going to add that to my thread, and I'm going to leave a tail, and I want my tail to be long enough. I used my tail to come back and attach my earring to the top of my piece. So I want my tail long enough to be able to attach the earring and then to weave back in to the piece to secure. So I'm going to add my bead stopper, and I've got about that much thread to weave back in and attach my earring. So I've got my first row on. Now the second row is really where you're going to start doing the square stitch. And what I like about the square stitch is some stitches that we've tried, you start with a different stitch like ladder stitch. Square stitch, you're just going to get right into square stitching. So we're going to pick up this, this background color bead for the next row. Now we're going to start the square stitch off right away. So I've got my next bead for the second row picked up. All you're going to do is come back around through that last bead added, like that. And these first rows will be a little squirrely, don't worry. So it's kind of like a ladder stitch in that way, but you're not going to continue the ladder this way. You're going to continue with a square stitch. And then you come back down through that bead you just added. And again, it's going to be a little squirrely in your first rows. Don't worry. So our next bead color is that chevron bead. And you're going to add that one pretty much in the same way you just added your first one. So you're coming out of that bead you just added. You're going to go through, you've added your chevron bead. You're going to go through that next bead in the previous row in the same manner. And these will all start to look more neat and tidy when we get more beads added to the row. Look at that, I've got the next bead added in the second row. Then you're going to go through that bead again to get you positioned to add the next one. So you're really just making a square, making a loop back through the beads. Now we're going to add our background color in this row. We're going through, looping through the next bead in the row. Whoops, sorry for bumping my camera. I get too into all of these stitches sometimes. And then you come back, loop back through the bead you just added in the other direction to get you ready to add the next bead. Now we're adding that center line color. So we've got that hot pink bead on the thread. We're going to loop through the hot pink bead in the previous row. Go back through the bead we just added. Now, I do musical theater, so in my mind this is like the box step. The square stitch is the box step of beading. All right, next we're doing that background color because you're really just going, making a square, making a loop. So you picked up your background color, going through that next bead over in the previous row, if I can catch it with my needle. And then coming back through the bead you just added. And we're almost done with the second row. We're going to add our chevron bead color. Go loop back through the next bead in the row. What was that bracelet on the other tray? I had a couple bracelets. This is our block party bracelet with made with TOHO Aikos seed beads on the loom. This is in our design studio. I've got a link to it in the video description. And then I also shared another square stitch bracelet. This is our copper fall bracelet. I made this with an Art Beads designer seed bead blend and the square stitch, which I'm demonstrating here. This is also in our design studio with free instructions and a supplies list. I've got a link to it in the video description. So this is the technique I'm demonstrating right now, the square stitch. Really beautiful stitch. It does look like loom. And as I said before, you can use it to alter your loomed pieces. All right, I'm adding the last bead in my second row. So I'm going to remove that bead stopper. I've pretty much got the beads that I want in place. And that's, I just want to get that out of my way. So again, I added that background color. And then I'm looping through that last bead in the first row. And then coming back through the bead we just added. And we're done with our second row. Now what I like to do, you can see they're kind of curvy, they're kind of squirrely. What I like to do at this point is I like to go through all the beads of the last row just to kind of line them up more, get them straighter. This will also, for the project that I'm doing, earrings, it'll make the stitch a little stiffer, a little sturdier, which is what I want for earrings like this. So you can see how that really just kind of lined them up way nicer. And then you'll come back through that row you just created. Go through all the beads. And that just kind of gives them a better shape. Yay! All right, so we're on to our third row. So square stitch is super easy and super quick, as you can see. Especially if you have a simple pattern like this. I don't really need to refer to my color pattern because it's a repeating pattern, and it's pretty easy to see like what color you should be adding next based on the chevron pattern. So if you have a simple color pattern, it will go by super quick. And then I'll do a few more rows and then I'll show you how to decrease the stitch to make that point. It's super easy. So I'm just adding another row of square stitch. So I looped around that bead in the previous row, coming back through the bead I just added. And now I'm adding my chevron color. And as you can see, by the third row, we've already made our first full chevron point. So really great. Looping back through the bead. Picking up my centerline color, going through the centerline color in the previous row, in the opposite direction so we can make a loop, and then going back through the bead you just added. I typically do not turn my work around when I'm working, but you certainly can. If that's something that's going to trip you up, if like going a different direction than what you were weaving, if that trips you up, feel free to turn your work around. I'll kind of show you on this next row. But I usually just keep my project in the same orientation. It probably depends on the stitch I'm doing. Sometimes in peyote stitch, I will turn my work around. But I think for the most part, I just keep my work the same way. Oops. Go back through that bead you just added. And you guys, again, these beads feel so good when you're stitching them together. They're so smooth because they're just so uniform. So when you get them all stitched together, they just feel nice. That's what I love about the TOHO Aikos. Really great. All right, we finished our third row, and I'm just going to go back through all of the beads in the second row. I think it just helps with the shape. And then come back up through the third row. And then you're ready to start your fourth row. Now I could keep going this way, or I could flip my work if I want to continue working in the same orientation that I was before. And with a symmetrical pattern like this, that's easy to do because the pattern is the same on both sides of that center line. And then you just keep going. So super easy stitch, and works up pretty fast as well. So this is a great one. Again, it looks just like loom work when you're done. So if you don't want to bust out your loom, or you're making a small project like these earrings, maybe you go for square stitch. I really like these colors too. They're super fun. They're like party colors. And these are some of the new colors, the new Aiko colors that we launched on our website. Again, we have so many amazing colors. If you just head to our Aiko page, you'll see all the pretty colors. And if you know the TOHO color codes that you like to work with, definitely search for those on the website. And you might find your favorite colors in the Aikos. Yeah, we do have kits for techniques like peyote stitch. I think that's a great way to learn a stitch if you're new, because it has all of the beads you need, the thread and needle, and it has great instructions and diagrams. And we do have kits. I think we have a peyote stitch ring kit, and what was the other one? A bracelet kit featuring the Aikos seed beads. So I've got those linked in the video description as well. So if you want to start out using Aikos with a kit that has the design ready for you, all the beads that go with it, and the instructions and the diagrams, check out those kits. But I think a kit would be, especially a ring kit, because that's a quick peyote stitch project. I think that would be a great kit for a beginner. And now I'm going to show you how to decrease the stitch. So let's say I just wanted really short earrings, or maybe like this could be a cute little pendant or something. I'm going to show you how to decrease that square stitch. And it's actually really easy because you can approach this stitch from any direction, really. Yeah, kits are a great way to learn a new technique. I agree as well. So I've got this row done. I'm going to come back through my bottom row like I did before to straighten up all the beads. And go back through this row. Whoopsie. So to decrease the stitch on that point, what I want to do is start the next row one bead over. So I don't want to start the row here. I want to start it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through those two beads in the previous row. And then I'm just going to come through that, just the second bead in the working row, right there. Thread's getting kind of caught here. So I want to move that. There we go. Now I'm going to start adding my chevron color first for this row. And I'm just going to loop around through that bead. And then loop back through the bead I just added. Super easy to decrease the stitch because really you can do square stitch from any direction. So now I'm ready to add the next bead in the row. I've got my background color. I'm gonna go through that next bead in the previous row. Come back through the bead I just added. Add my center line color. Boy, these are fun colors. Super cool. Playful. They're playful colors. Oops. And I've got, you can see my thread kind of went through the loop that I made here. I don't want that, so I'm just going to undo that. There we go. Go back through that bead we just added. Add a background color. I love square stitch. So easy. Really, it's a really great stitch to get creative with, like making these pointed shapes. That's not something I had done before, but knowing the nature of the stitch, I figured it was going to be pretty easy. And it was! So, love that. Yes, TOHO Aikos are a little bit more expensive than Delicas because they are really precise. You're not going to have to cull as many beads. So in the long run, it's probably like the difference probably isn't that much because you're not culling as many beads. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, we've got that first decreased row done. And I'm just going to position my thread to the next part. So I'm going through those two beads in the previous row. So I skipped over that first bead in the previous row and going through the next two beads that line up. This bead kind of lines up with the bead I'm already coming out of. So when you're repositioning your thread, this is good to know for any kind of stitch. If you're repositioning your thread in the stitch, just make sure to follow the bead path. Don't skip over any beads or anything like that because then your thread will be poking out of your stitch and that's not something you want. And then you'll just come through that second bead in the working row. Oops, and you can kind of see your thread might get caught on the edges of your rows when you're decreasing, but easily remedied. So you've just stepped up the row. So now we're going to add our chevron color to this row. There we go, going through that background bead. Adding that center line. And the great thing about this is it gets quicker to do each row as you're decreasing it. I only have to add 3 beads to this row. I've picked up my next chevron color, going through the bead below it in the previous stitch, in the previous row, and then going back through the bead we just added to loop around. Woohoo! All right, and now I'm going to position my thread so that it's coming out of that center line bead. So I'm just going through those two, that background color and that hot pink color in the previous row. And then coming through that hot pink center color in the working row, like so. And then I'm just adding my little point there. Now you can make this point the pink color. I'm gonna make it the turquoise color because I think that just like finishes it off nicely, completes the point. closes off the design, I think, in a nice way. But that's totally up to you. I think it would look cool ended on the centerline color as well. Look at that, so easy. Go through that bead there. There you go. So super easy stitch to decrease. And I'll show you too, you guys have been asking about this for a lot of the videos I do where I'm showing you how to stitch. I'm going to show you how to secure and trim your thread. So once you've finished your stitch, you're just going to weave back through the beads in your stitch, and you're going to loop around several times. And what that's going to do is it's going to catch the threads that are inside your stitch. And the more you loop around, the more threads you'll catch. And that's going to secure your thread in place. It's kind of like knotting within the beads, but you're just catching those threads again and again to secure it in place. So I'm just going to loop around. And remember, we went back through the rows to kind of straighten them up. So keep that in mind. You might want to use a smaller needle size than you typically work with if you're going to be doing that, because with so many passes through these beads, it can get kind of tight. So I'm just simply looping through the beads, following the thread path to loop through these beads, and that's going to secure my thread in place. And as you go, you'll feel it get tighter and more secure. So I've looped through several times, and that one felt super tight, so I think I am ready to trim. So I've got my thread secured, and I'm going to use my little cutters here to trim my thread, and I'm going to trim it super close to the bead so you can't see that thread poking out. And there you go. Cool, so that's the square stitch. You could make this longer. I made this one super short for demonstration purposes, but you can make this like this would actually be really cute like on an earring post. Just glue that little piece on a post for some cute little short earrings. You could make them even longer than this. I think that would be a fun like drop necklace design if you had like a really longer piece than this. I think that would be a neat drop necklace design. You could do a bracelet design like this, even with that pointed end. You could add a clasp there. All kinds of things you can do with this square stitch. It's really fun. And like I said earlier, I left my tail long enough to position at the top of the center line, loop around a leverback earring or any kind of earring finding, and then weave back in, just as how I showed you for finishing off my working thread. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. You could layer the different lengths or stack them. Yeah, that would be fun. Like make different lengths and then stack them all together. Ooh, that would be really cool actually. Fun little dimensional piece, and you could stitch them on top of each other. That's a great idea. That would be super fun. Great idea. So all kinds of different things you could do with TOHO Aikos and the square stitch. We do have full instructions and a supplies list, as well as a lovely PDF color diagram for these earrings. You'll find that in our design studio. I've got a link to that in the video description. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned a little more about square stitch. Let me know if you have any more questions. And let me know what you want to see next. Like I said earlier, so great hearing what you guys want to see. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed learning about the square stitch. Like I said, I've got links to everything in the video description if you need more tutorials, more instructions. We do have a great video tutorial all about square stitch if you need more help. And those earrings that I demoed are available in our design studio with free instructions and a supplies list. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment. I love hearing from you guys, and let me know what kind of project you want to see next. We have so much inspiration in our design studio, and we're always adding more. So if there's something specific that you want to see, let me know and I will make a note of it.
Thank you so much. And if you enjoy our channel, please make sure to subscribe so you're the first to know when videos like this one come out. Thank you, and I will see you next time. Bye.